Is China run by a transnational criminal organization? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. In China today, there are concentration camps. Minorities are used for slave labor after getting forcibly sterilized. People of faith get their organs harvested in state-run hospitals. And yet, Wall Street elite keep pushing investment in the same government. Here's a recent article from J.P. Morgan Chase, focused on opportunities. Why invest in Chinese government bonds now? And human rights concerns didn't stop a major EU-China investment agreement. The Chinese Communist Party has repeatedly broken international promises, like its agreement with the World Trade Organization, and its agreement with the UK that Hong Kong would get to keep its freedoms. The problem is, governments and countries around the world treat the Chinese Communist Party like a legitimate government. But that may change. There's an effort going on right now to label the Chinese Communist Party a transnational criminal organization. For more on that, I spoke with Hong Kong businessman and political commentator Elmer Yuen about how the world can hold the Chinese Communist Party accountable for their actions. Mr. Yuen, thank you for joining me today.
Hi. Thank you for inviting me.
Of course. You initially came to the U.S. to advocate for Hong Kong before Beijing passed the national security law. What do you think of what the U.S. government has done so far to counter the Chinese Communist Party's actions in Hong Kong?
When I arrived back in middle of June, they were not really prepared. I mean, Pompeo spoke a lot about standing with Hong Kong, but that's only words. In action, they're totally unprepared. And the State Department, as you know, is not very anti-China at all. They are pro-China overall. Over the years, it's always been. After most of these guys retire, they look to have some business with China. China is a big business market. So anyway, nobody's quite prepared, and it's more spoken support instead of action. And I hear these words about measured response against China, against CCP.
You've proposed that the U.S. government should label the Chinese Communist Party as a transnational criminal organization. What does that mean?
Everybody say China is a big country, big nation. In fact, the nation itself, the word nation, is really a facade. In essence, it's the CCP in total control, complete control. It's really not a nation. Almost behind every government official, or even behind every business, even small business, you can see the CCP controlling behind. As you know, China has over 90 million CCP members, over 90 million. And then you have lots of young people. After kindergarten, they start joining this pioneer, the Red Scarf. So they have unlimited supply of very well-educated, the best they have, the brightest they have to join the party. So overall, the CCP is very much like the mafia organization, right? On top, you have about 50 families, very powerful families, from the Long March or from the high officials. We call them the red second generation or third generation, and then the official second or third generation, and they have accumulated huge amount of wealth. As you can see, in all the major cities, the most expensive apartments or properties bought up by them, the prime real estate. They have been using companies, shelf company, investing in all kinds of Fortune 500 companies. You don't know them because they use company name, right? So they are really controlling this company behind the scene and also working with them. All right, China is working with all these big corporations on the service. This, as you can see, but the control behind the back, the equity control, is something people don't talk about. So this is the organization: 50 families, 90 million members, which are like gangsters in the mafia, And then they have 1.3 trillion people to exploit. Very much like you remember the New York movies, you have the mafia families, and then you have the gangsters, and then you have the people on the street that they go and collect protection money. Very much that's the system. It works. So the word nation, it's really, we always consider them as nation, as a legal nation. So we deal with them with diplomacy and then make contracts with them. And then the British wrote this Sino-British Joint Declaration about Hong Kong, treating them like a nation. But as you know, criminals have no understanding of law, right? The minute they can break, they will break. As long as they are making money, they let it go on. And as long as they don't make any money, they will break their contract, any contract. So Hong Kong is a typical example. They find that Hong Kong people wants too much freedom, rule of law, and democracy. So they've decided to take over Hong Kong, and then forget about the Joint Declaration, British Chinese Declaration. So they've decided to do that, and suddenly Hong Kong become part of China. So like Donald Trump said, it's no longer one country, two system. It's become one country, one system. So what happened to me, I've really not been involved with politics. I realized, but I know all about China because I deal with every level of them. I live in China 20 years, I live in US 20 years, and Hong Kong 20 years. Right? So I know all these countries quite well. I know what all the crimes they've committed in the last 71 years, where the People's Republic of China, they named the country, right? Which is really not, they don't respect it. There's no people. You never see the people. It's not a republic, right? And it's really not Chinese culture. What they are exercising is very much like the Soviet, even more closer to the fascist behavior. Chinese are not fascism, even though we have emperors, but the emperor normally leave the people alone. So, but anyway, I've decided to come to expose their crimes. At least 70 million people died of abnormal death since 1949, right? From starvation, from cultural revolution, people committing suicide, and all kinds of political struggle. And every family has suffered from the political persecution. So I've decided to come to the States to lobby your Congress about the Chinese being a criminal organization. In the beginning, I was thinking about using the RICO law. I'm sure you know about the RICO law against the gangster, which means every party member is in fact a criminal if you belong to this criminal organization. Then we discovered there's even a better law called the Transnational Criminal Organization. They use that law against the South American drug cartels, right? And also use it against the Hezbollahs. And of course, China is a much bigger scale of a criminal organization. So that suits very well. So we have Congressman Scott Perry. He's combining three different laws. One is the Transnational Criminal Organization. One is the RICO. And also, as you know, there was old McCarthy law, the Communist Control Act. So he's combining all three, and he is trying to legislate and designate the CCP as a TCO, and also a RICO violation of the RICO and the Communist Act. And these laws are already in place. So we don't need to go through legislation. It's only a matter of designation.
Well, so practically speaking, what would it mean for the international community and businesses if the CCP were labeled a criminal organization?
If you're a businessman, would you sign a contract with a criminal organization? Would you sign a contract with a mafia organization? It's exactly that. And I wouldn't even shake hands, right? If you normally in U.S. A legitimate company, you normally have your lawyer to check the other side to see how good it is. The minute you discover it's a criminal organization, no executive in their right mind would sign a contract or even negotiate. So suddenly you have them isolated. You force them, takes time, right? You force them to give up this CCP and become a normal country. This is in long term. This is what I expect. But step number one, you must label them. Because most people don't know. They think, oh, I'm going to China. It's a huge market. 1.4 billion people, I can make a lot of money. That's everybody. Same thing with the Ivy League. All the professors, oh, Chinese, great culture. They are inviting me there, pay for my tickets and hotel, everything. And then, oh, I must go. There's a lot to study. And I can write paper and write books. This is what happened to the corporatists, to Hollywood. Wow, how can I let go of 1.4 billion movie tickets, for a good movie? So all NBA, everybody is really, they thought about this huge market and forgot who they are dealing with. They're not dealing with the people. They're dealing with the Communist Party. That is the problem. So I want to label them so people are aware of who they are dealing with. Criminals, they're dealing with criminals. It's very, very important. And you cannot expect them to keep their promise. And in the end, they would do anything because criminals obviously have no sense of law. They would do anything for their own good. And communism means they want to take over all the private ownership, global, not only China, global. That's what One Belt, One Road. That's why they're in US. They have infiltrated almost everything, including your White House, your State Department, and your presidency.
So you're basically saying that the U.S. should sanction the entire Chinese Communist Party. But the CCP is already fighting U.S. sanctions by saying that if international companies follow U.S. sanctions, they're going to get in trouble in China. So does that mean U.S. sanctions wouldn't work?
You have to decouple with them and forget about the near-term profit, honestly. Because if you still want to do business with them, that the trouble will never end. Right now, of course, if you look at Wall Street and Silicon Valley and then Hollywood and NBA, right, and also the Ivy Leagues, they love to do business with China, right, because China treats them well. They know how to take care of them. So they don't want to cut off. But in reality, we know, we've been dealing with them from Hong Kong. We know how they behave. They always win. In the end, they always win. So I believe that you have to decouple with them. And not only US, the whole world have to isolate them and make sure they change back to a normal nation. And then you can deal with them. China business will be 5 times better if you are dealing with a normal nation. Right now, they're stealing your technology, they're stealing everything, and they have very, very cheap labor, cheap land, and cheap executive. So they can undercut the price, and basically you can't compete with them. They have the mass, they have their domestic market to have the scale, economy of scale. So in a way, you cannot compete with them fairly unless they become a private enterprises.
So you're arguing that it is in the economic interest of the international community, Hollywood, Wall Street, to actually view the Chinese Communist Party as a criminal organization, that is, in the long run, better for them.
In the long run. But I think people should also try to understand the evilness of this whole regime, of this party. What's happening in Xinjiang is more serious than what the Nazis have done to the Jews. More serious in Xinjiang. And people can also compare Hong Kong now with Hong Kong before. Everybody loves Hong Kong. Whoever's been to Hong Kong, they love Hong Kong. And now suddenly you can talk to any Hong Kong people coming out of Hong Kong, and they'll tell you it's disaster. It's basically, it's like taken over by the fascists. And that they are arresting people, and they don't go by the law. They gave them whatever sentence they want, and they don't care about the charges. Suddenly, our whole legal system is out of the window.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today, Mr. Yuen. It's a fascinating thing to try and label the Chinese Communist Party as a transnational criminal organization. As
they understand more about CCP, and as the personal damage from the COVID and economics, and also the cyber warfare that they are attacking US, I hope people will wake up. And it takes time. It may take time, but this is what they are. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. Do you think the CCP should be labeled a transnational criminal organization? Let me know in the comments below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.